Welcome to Trail Manners, the podcast so dedicated to mountain trails and running that they broadcast out of a 78 Volkswagen bus in the mountains. Who does that? Eric and Joel are your hosts and will bring you the trail life as you may have not heard it before. You hear about everything from gear reviews, nutrition to keep you upright and moving forward, and they'll even bring guests into the bus for conversations that you won't hear anywhere else. It's time for some running adventures on a higher elevation. The old 78 Volkswagen bus is fired up and headed to the mountains. Here are your hosts for Trail Manners, proudly representing the 801 with their passion and love for the trails, Eric Manning and Joel Hatch.
Welcome to the Trail Manners Podcast, episode number 86. Today we are back with Jeff Hart for the third time on his road to the Hardrock 100. So if this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The Trail Manners Podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at trailmanners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Trail Manners. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it. All right, welcome back to the Trail Manners Podcast. We are, I guess it's number 3. It's episode 80, what are we at, 86, and we've got Jeff Hart back on the line here on the telephone. Jeff, how are you?
Woohoo, I'm good.
So it's been about a month since we talked to you last, and you've got, I don't know if you know this or not, you got a whopping 42 days or 6 weeks from today that the Hardrock 100 will start. So how did that make you feel?
That really fills me with a little bit of dread, but also a ton of excitement. Yeah, that's cool. I hadn't realized it was that close. I guess maybe I should go for a run or something.
Yeah, maybe quit spending guys on the phone and just head out for a run.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was counting down, kind of getting ready for the show and kind of going over the calendar. I'm like, wow, 42 days. That's
dang.
It seems, it's over a month. It's 6 weeks, but knowing what you're going into, it doesn't seem like it snuck up on you, probably. No,
it hasn't snuck up, but it hasn't been my typical build up for an ultra. So wow. It'll be new.
Well, I mean, last time we talked to you, about a month ago, you were kind of dealing with some injuries and also some of the mental side because of the injuries and stuff. How's the last month been? How you feeling? Where are you at right now?
Well, so the Achilles issues are finally coming around. The pain I had in my hip and knee turned out to be bicep femoris tendinopathy with a likely avulsion fracture at the lower insertion point. So it wasn't, I wasn't making things up in my own head. And so that's been a long row to hoe. So yeah, they've been bad, but things are coming around now. I finally feel like I'm getting back to normal.
Okay. Now give me an idea, that long sentence you just put in with your injury. Exactly, for guys like me or people like me, what exactly was that issue? So
there's a tendon that runs from kind of the inside of your hip around through your hamstring and has an insertion point on the outside of the knee. And I think it's just below the knee. Even on that outside lower edge of the knee is where you feel it. And if you pull it or strain it, then you get the tendonitis. And having tendonitis tendinosis, because it's not really, tendonitis is swelling, but tendinosis is just kind of like aggravated. So anyway, you aggravate it, and if you aggravate it bad enough, or if you damage it bad enough, it'll pull away from the bone a little bit. So I had some of it that I think was pulled away from the bone. So it's that tendon, and where it connects at the knee is kind of torn off a little bit. So you can feel it in the hips. That's why when I would go up and down stairs, I'd feel it deep in my hip, and my hamstring would be really tight, and then I'd feel it in my knee. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a lot better for me.
Yeah.
I know it probably made sense to a lot of other people when you said it, but for me, I heard bicep something or another, and I thought, you hurt your arm? Come on,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a medical doctor, but I've had my share of injuries enough that, you know, I pretty much know all of them, I think.
So how's the mental state? I know that's something we kind of talked at length at on number 2 last time we talked to you. Just kind of where you were at and everything else. How's that been the last month or so?
Yeah, I think I'm in the fifth stage of. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know those stages. I'm in a much better mental place now, and it kind of just it took that time, and it takes that patience to get over an injury and just kind of maintain some fitness. But it just required me to reassess my goals here. You know, I mean I want to run Hardrock, but I'm okay now knowing that it's probably going to be a hard walk.
Yeah.
So it is what it is, and I'm happy with that, and I'm psyched, and I'm still 100% motivated and dedicated, and throwing my all into it.
That's
So
that's great to hear. I like what you said there because it kind of has a little ring to it. You want to hard walk the hard rock, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, and I can't take credit for that. I've heard people call it the hard walk before,
Yeah.
and certainly, um, you know, I haven't been able to go out and do any long runs, but I have a base level of fitness that I've been able to maintain, and I haven't detrained having those injuries, and it's because, and maybe it would have healed faster too if I hadn't continued to walk as much as I did, and you know, do as many short runs and cross training, a lot of biking, things like that. So.
Let me ask. This is interesting. I'm interested to get your take on this because I've had this conversation with some friends of mine and people I've run with and talked to. You talk about you have a good base. Now, as we talked about, I think in the first time we got together on the first episode with you, we talked about your amazing day or day and a half you had at Wasatch last September.
Yeah.
So you were just in great fitness, great shape, and that was just September, so not too long ago. How and you've done this for years, like the ultra running, the trail running. How long do you think a base can stay with you before you start to lose too much to where you're almost starting over? I guess if that's the right way to put it, or if that even makes sense.
Yeah, for me it's about a month. Well, actually, if I don't do anything for a month, I feel like it's gone and I'm starting over from scratch. But if I can maintain, being active 6 days a week, whether that's all running or walking or biking or doing yoga and strength things, which are really important. I can kind of maintain that base level to where, at the drop of a hat or whim, barring injuries, I can go out and run half marathon distance, 15-mile distance, without really worrying about it. And that's kind of what I like. I like to be at that point all the time where I can just kind of go out and do whatever. So yeah, I don't know. A couple weeks. I mean, clearly a couple weeks of not training and you start to feel weaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you think though? At some point, it comes back quicker though. Even though, say, you took a month off of nothing, you were doing whatever injured. Do you think it does come back maybe a little bit quicker because you've had that history or that base that your body kind of remembers in a way of, hey, okay, yeah, I remember this now.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, when I was prepping for Western States, I think it was 2013. I was working on my PhD at the time, and so I just got consumed with that. And I had a lead-up race, one of my favorites. It's out in, New Hampshire and Massachusetts border. It's called the Wapak and Back. 50-miler along the Wapak Trail. Favorite trail in the whole world. It's amazing. Rocky, wet, humid, buggy, and lots of ups and downs. It's unrelenting, and it's this out and back with like an 8 mile little dog leg at the end. So you come back to the start finish line at 42 miles, and then you have to go out again for 8 more.
Oy,
Ooh, that's hard.
that is hard.
And they'll allow you to drop at 42. So it's like, hey, no problem, just stop.
Dirty sucker.
So yeah. Anyway, leading up to that was kind of my prep race for Western States, and then before that, my training runs hadn't gone well, and so I basically kind of kicked my system into gear with like back-to-back 15 milers. So I did a 15 miler on Saturday and then a 15 miler on Sunday, and really felt that I could feel my body kind of snap into ultra shape, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I finished it. I did well. I went back out at the 42 mile mark.
There you go.
So, it can happen. And I feel like mentally, and I know it won't happen without that mental cog piece being in place. And we talked about that last time, the mental issues, but I feel like mentally my cogs are in line. And so this month, man, it's my month. I'm going to go out and do my 2 15 milers, and I'll be ready for Hardrock.
There you go. That's all you need. That's all you need.
Sure.
100 miles, right?
It's only 100 miles.
Yeah. Because it's interesting, and I won't divert too far off what we're here for, but injuries play such a big role in trail running, in ultra running. Well, I mean, in life in general. And I've had a couple friends just come off some different types of surgeries here locally. One's back, kind of a shorter stint on the IR, if you will. And one has been on there with some major Achilles and ankle surgery. And it's just that whole, there's the missing out, because you love running, you love being out there, regardless of anything or anything else. But it's also the kind of drives you crazy, because you can't do something that you want to do. And if you have something you want to do, you're not going to be as prepared for it. So down the road, that's a show we're definitely going to talk more about is, kind of that injury, overcoming the mental state of keeping it in check.
Yeah.
But your story is interesting just because you have a deadline, right? The Hardrock 100 is the same date. They're not moving it for you.
Yep.
You've got to overcome these injuries and these mental moments, I guess, to get there. So that's it's just interesting to hear kind of where you're at with the injuries you've had, also knowing that you've got this, major event happening in 42 days. Jeff.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. It's clearly you are trying to help. I can see that.
That's all I'm here for. That's it.
So, two things on that. The first one is, I have a huge fear of missing out. Anytime I hear people going out and doing the Zion Traverse or, doing the Wonderland Trail around Rainier, it's like, oh, I should be doing that. I should be doing that. So I'm constantly battling with that. And that leads me to the second one, which is when you're injured, social media is your worst enemy.
Oh, yeah.
It is your worst enemy because you see everybody that's out there doing what you want to be doing, and you feel so ineffectual. You feel so inadequate, and it just drives me nuts. And so I think one of the best things I've done is I've really just kind of curtailed. I don't pay as much attention to social media.
That's probably really good, especially, we talked about this once before on one of our shows. You get that, when spring kind of rolls around and people get out more to do these different adventure runs or races or events. And if you're not ready at that time, it almost puts you in a worse place mentally because maybe where you should be or where you want to be and I'm already missing this early spring that comes once a year or, whatever it is. So, that's a very good point, is curtailing from social media, because it is a trap.
Oh, totally. I think if I was a coach, that would be one of the first, if I had an injured athlete, that's one of the first things that I would suggest is that you suspend your Facebook account or limit your Instagram time something.
Or find better friends.
Yeah, find find less active friends, maybe.
That just
Yeah,
that eat Oreos and post it.
yeah, yep.
Okay, so last time we talked, you were around the like what? How many miles a week would you say last time we talked? Like a month ago during this, like 40, 45?
Yeah, I was up around 40 to 50, so I had a few 40 to 50 mile weeks.
And
Um,
has that
and
changed
then
much?
yeah. So as soon as I realized that this biceps femoris tendinopathy wasn't going to go away, or avulsion fracture wasn't going to go away, um, I I didn't try and keep beating myself up. I more or less stopped running for a couple of weeks and only walked, but was still walking 20 to 30 miles a week. And to be honest, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people out there going, or at least all three of your listeners. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how much,
I'll take.
but that are going to be like, whoa, you're going into Hardrock and you're doing 30-mile weeks. So that's where I'm at. I'm at 30-mile weeks.
So how do you wrap your mind around that? You talk about the listeners, thinking a certain way, but at the end of the day, it's all what's in your head that matters. So how do you, knowing what you've done in the past, how you've prepared in the past for other things, where does that leave you right now thinking about that?
It's funny. When I first started this, I was I was cranking out. I was having maybe 2,000 to 3,000 mile years. So by the end of the training year or the running year, culminating in a 100-miler, I was doing about 2 to 3,000 miles. Last year, at my best 100-mile finish, Wasatch, I did 1,600. I did far fewer miles.
Yeah.
And so mentally, I'm okay because I do know that in a month, all I really need at this point is to stay healthy and to get out in a couple of weeks to be able to get out and get in some long runs. And those long run is really kind of probably a misnomer. It's really going to be more like, long power hikes with, running the downs and hiking the ups and get out in the mountains. And I'm going to be good. So I'm confident that if I can stay healthy and I can get things to where, I just ran 2 days in a row. I was in Colorado and ran at, 5,500 feet, 6 miles each day, back to back 6 milers. And, I had an ache. It's kind of an ache, but I feel it more when I'm sitting on the plane. And so I know I'm coming around, and mentally I feel fresh and I feel confident. So it's just a matter of staying healthy and getting out and putting in some long days. But it'll come in, and it will. I know that, I know I'll snap too.
Well,
It's
because
the only way I can put
say
it.
that it's like, okay, I did back-to-back 6 mile days, which is great, because you are coming off an injury or you are ramping up and you're even at, a higher elevation than what you're training at now.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like much heading into Hardrock. So I think
Nope.
what you were saying, your mental state to me is almost more important than the mileage or the fact that they're quote unquote, smaller mileage days, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For me too. It's you know, I mean, the thing that makes me feel more confident is, like you say, I'm training at sea level right now, and I go to 5,500 feet, and I'm running, 9:30. I think my averages were about 9:30 minute pace for each of those, with very little elevation change, but nothing felt like it was being taxed. So, I know that my body's still in good shape. All those things are there. My lungs are good. My muscles are good. It's just this silly tendon issue. So I can build quickly. Yeah. So I am confident. But yeah, I guess we'll see when we get there.
Well, and I think what you mentioned earlier is, hiking the ups and running the downs and, as far as your training goes, I mean, essentially that is Hardrock. I mean, you can talk to the people that, place very high, maybe not, first place like a, Killian or someone like that, but a majority, 99% of the field, that's the game plan, right? You
Yeah.
don't expect to go run 100 miles at Hardrock. It's training wise. I mean, I've talked to people, it's training. Yeah, we practice hiking, you run the downhills, and then the last thing, which is huge on any race, is time on your feet, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And time on my feet, I'm really sitting well for that, because that's one thing that I haven't stopped doing. I very rarely sit down, and when I say rarely sit down, I mean, when I'm teaching, I'm standing up. When I come back to my office, I have a standing desk. I'm standing up. When I go home, maybe by 8 o'clock, I'm finally sitting down. And actually, sitting down is more like I'm laying on the ground and I'm on my roller,
Yeah.
or sitting on a tennis ball or something. So and that's on top of walking to and from class, walking around campus. And I know, granted, I mean, I'm not saying that equates at all to Hardrock, but I mean, I think my mileage is deceptive. And I've heard, you hear other people that go, oh yeah, he barely did any runs before this event and then he was fine. It's like, well, that kind of makes it sound like you're not in good shape. But, I'm lifting weights every morning at home. I'm doing my little weights sessions at home. I'm doing yoga every week. I'm running, I'm biking. I have a stationary bike at home that I get on occasionally. So yeah, my Strava doesn't, just my Strava is deceptive, even if you do post everything.
I don't. I've tried the Strava thing this year for the first time, like trying to be very consistent, and I still struggle sometimes. Sometimes I just don't upload, or I don't take a watch, and I don't want to type stuff in. So I'm like, it is what it is. I mean, I see
Yeah.
people just crushing it. But I think what you were saying just now is huge with what we do. I think training is based on the person, right? I mean, what you're comfortable with, what you're confident with. Because like you said, you hear people saying, oh, I didn't run a lot before I went into this race, or I didn't do a lot of climbing. It's not necessarily saying that's the only way to do it, but you do see people overtrain. I think that might be the biggest issue with trail running is overtraining.
I agree.
And you hear that from coaches, you hear that from top athletes, you hear that from anybody. Not saying that undertraining is the way to go either, but I think everybody has their sweet spot. Where they,
Yeah.
oh, how many miles did you hit this week? 40. How many did you do? Oh, I did 90. But
Yeah.
what's good for one is not necessarily good for the other one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I certainly would rather have a bigger base than I've got right now. But I agree 100%. There's no way my body would hold up with the mileage I used to do before.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't. But I would still like to have more than I have right now.
So we might have touched on this, maybe on the first time we got together on the episode 1 with you, but like before Wasatch, what was kind of like the peak of your training for Wasatch? Would you have an idea of what your weekly mileage might have been at that time?
Yeah. So before my other hundreds, I wanted to peak with 100-mile week.
Wow.
And I came in overtrained for both of those first two. And then Wasatch, I decided that my sweet spot, where I seem to do the best, is somewhere between 60 and 70 miles in a week.
Okay.
So I had, if memory serves, I had about a 65, maybe a 70, low 70s mile week a month before Wasatch. I didn't do any races leading up to it, and this race will be no different. Just haven't been ready. And so it was a lot of. I lived in Cedar City, which is at 6,000 feet, and I was right out of my door. I could go up what's called the Sea Trail, which would take me up to about 8,500 feet, and it was 4 miles from my house. So in maybe a 9-mile run, I could get in 2,500 feet of elevation change. So I was doing a lot of that. So I clearly had a lot more of those, big, hard runs. But I also had total different expectations for Wasatch.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to run the whole thing, and I wanted to have a good time. I mean, a fast time. Yeah. So different perspective on this one now. Now I'm okay taking the whole 48 hours, and I know mentally I'm tough as nails. I know mentally if it's a matter of just being fatigued, I can push through that. I can withstand, my share of pain, as anybody who's done those long distance races knows that they're just full of that. And it doesn't matter if you go fast or slow; it's just there.
Yeah. I love what you just said there, that you're tough as nails, because that's the mental side. I mean, cannot be stressed enough how important that is, no matter what's going on, whether it's a time, whether it's an injury, whether it's, anything. And that relays over to life, right? So it's
Yeah,
just about running. It's kind of just your mindset about everything.
yeah. So at this conference I was just at, I had the chance to meet Marty Hoffman, who's the doctor that works with Hardrock. I'm sorry, with Western States. I also met Dr. Glover and Halverson. They are the medical team for Hardrock. But I was talking to Marty Hoffman, and I said, listen, when I did Western in 2013, I came into the Forest Hill. No, wait, no, I came into Robinson Flat, so not even 30 miles into the race, and I was down 8 pounds. For some reason, I had some kind of bug, and I just lost liquid, and I felt like death. And the medical doctor they had there, I step up onto the scale. He says, "Oh, you're down 8 pounds." I said, "Please, please kick me out of the race." He's like, "Why?" I said, "Because I can't do it myself. I'm like the Terminator. I cannot self-terminate. You're going to have to do it for me." And he said, "Nope, not going to do it. Sit down, drink some liquids, put this cool towel over your head, and eat a banana. And I'm telling you, in a little while, you're just going to snap to." He says, "You can quit at the next aid station, but you can't quit at mine."
That's awesome.
It was perfect. It was exactly what I needed to hear. I sat there for, 60 to 90 minutes. Felt like an eternity. And then it was like a light switch. Body came around, and I kept going and finished. So there you go.
So here's the pressing question I've been dying to ask, and I waited. I gave you a prescription on our last episode,
Oh, yeah.
and
Gold.
I already think I probably know the answer, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. My prescription to you was no more of that cider stuff. Let's try
Yeah.
getting some cheese curd therapy. Did you even try that?
Yes, I did. I will tell you two things. One, there is no good cheese curd up here. So any people that, any of you Wisconsin or northern Utah people that, make good cheese curd, Bellingham's waiting. But it was still good. It just wasn't squeaky cheese. It just didn't, anyway, whatever. And two, it worked. Clearly, I'm in a better place
Here we go.
because of that. The
There.
IPA and the squeaky cheese, it works.
Well, and I know you wouldn't have a problem finding a good IPA up there. Now, I believe you on the cheese curds, but I know the IPA, you're going to have a more than a good assortment.
Yeah, we have a plethora. Yeah. Yeah. There's some really good ones. There's a mountain right outside of town called Galbraith. It's world renowned for mountain biking. The trails are incredible. There's probably more than 50 miles of trails up there that a lot of mountain biking, but also running. So run up there. And there's a local brewery that has makes some brews named after like trails up there and things like that. So one called Cedar Dust, which is a really, really neat little trail with some, boardwalk features for the mountain bikers and just fun. The trails here are soft and fern covered and beautiful. Except that now they're getting a little bit overgrown, at least the trails behind my house, and there's stinging nettles. So there's nettles that are just crazy big.
That's no bueno.
I came home from a run. I think it was last week, and I can still see the welts. So clearly, it's not poison ivy, but I had a reaction that was very much poison ivy like.
Because it's yucky. It's not.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and I'm wearing shorts and I'm wearing no shirt finally, and I just came home just covered. It was painful.
That's unfortunate, but it's good that it'll go away, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was, it stung for a day, and then, I have a nut allergy, not an anaphylactic, so I don't, I can still breathe, but I just love cashews. And the other day I was at an event, and they had cashews, and I couldn't help but eat them. And then I paid the price because I get this rash on the inside of my mouth, and my throat feels like it's on fire. It's miserable.
Well, quit sabotaging your training.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that the IPA Cheese Curd method worked, at least.
That's gold. So you need to write a book.
When I write my book, I will include that in a chapter for prescription or for medication purposes.
Yeah. Now the dosage, I think the dosage could be a mediating factor in this. That I didn't have a lot of cheese curd options, but it did help. And the IPA, you could clearly have too much of it.
That's up for debate.
Well, I could. I'm a lightweight.
That'll be. I'll have to do a study. I'll have to get some people to do a study, and we'll do the different 2-to-1 ratio, 3-to-1 ratio, and kind of see what works for what. But I like where that's going for sure.
Yeah, well, I am working toward tenure, and so the more presentations and research projects I can be on. So please, keep my name on the poster.
Well, that would be a great project. I could see that getting written up in all kinds of journals.
Well, I can submit it to our IRB here. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to go over, but
it's groundbreaking, so it'll go over. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So
clearly, there's a need.
Like the food stuff. We're kind of talking about that. Are you experimenting? Are you completely dialed in with kind of your nutrition for the race? We've touched on it a little bit, but you're getting closer. There's all these things you got to take care of. Are you ready nutrition-wise? You know what you're going to kind of work with?
I know what I've done in the past, and I know what I did at Wasatch, and they are not the same. And I will modify what I've done in the past and what I did at Wasatch. So at Wasatch, I spent very little time in any aid station. It was all about trying to get through fast. My longest stop was 9 minutes, and that was at Upper Big Water to change my socks. I tried to get in and out. So I did all liquid calories that I would carry, and that was all tailwind.
Okay.
And in addition to that, I would also take 1 handful of either tortilla chips or potato chips and 1 cup of Coke at every aid station. And I was averaging 185 to 215 calories an hour at Wasatch, which is much lower than I've tried to aim for in the past based on what I'd read or heard. You need more calories, and I didn't bonk, I didn't cramp, I didn't have stomach issues through the whole race. I mean, my stomach didn't feel great.
Yeah. But
I never had those issues. And so that's clearly for me, my system worked great on just that liquid calorie diet. Unfortunately, it was really fast, and fast compared to Hardrock, 26 hours. I'm going to be at Hardrock probably 47.59 right now. So I think I'm going to need something different. So I'll probably add in more solid calories.
Now, are you one that will train the way you're going to race, or do you just kind of do it on race day and keep your fingers crossed?
I have in the past. Yeah, I tend to run with the calories. I'll also do runs where I eat and then go out for a run. But again, my system has kind of adapted to being able to run when I'm hungry, being able to run when I'm full. So I do that now. Yeah, I do take the calories that I'm going to use. I'll definitely use Tailwind again. So I'll have that in my drop bags and aid stations. But I'll also add in some of the stuff that I've done in the past that's a little more solid. The quesadillas and the bananas and whatever they have at the aid stations.
No.
It also means a little lower intensity means I'll probably increase the calories. So I'll probably try and go up to 250 or 300. And it depends on if I know I'm going to be having a break or if I'm going to be really slow. If I'm really slow, I might do more and then just let my body adapt or digest before I pick up the intensity again.
Well, because I've talked to a lot of people, their fueling plan changes a lot in a race like Hardrock, where you've got a huge climb coming up like a Handy's or something like that. Because in races where you run, the solid food, it's slower to digest. It might feel heavy, but if you're just doing hiking, I've talked to a lot of people who says, no, I have no problem eating a piece of pumpkin pie or a piece of pizza or a burrito because even though it's maybe an intenser hike, I'm still not like going redline.
Yep. Yeah.
So is that kind of your mindset with that too? Is if you need some solid, you're not afraid if you're going to be kind of lower intensity training or running?
Yeah, I'm totally expecting to be doing that. Yeah. It'll still be it'll be the thing where I'll still carry the Tailwind between the aid stations, but then because of the longer time, I'll spend more time in the aid stations and I'll be using the aid station fare or whatever they're, carrying.
What about when you say use Tailwind? Is that mainly for the calorie? I mean, is there some electrolyte you use out of that as well? I mean, what's your thought on the Tailwind? Is that just purely a calorie standpoint?
I think it's a balance of all of those things. I know, the current research is saying that electrolytes or salt, that you don't need salt, that salt doesn't have any impact on cramping. And that may be the case, but I have an unrestricted, and that is to say probably a high sodium diet on average. I like salt on my food.
Yeah.
And to then turn around and not have salt on race day is a mistake also. And that's my N of one, is that I don't do well if I don't take in sodium. I don't like to take just the electrolyte tabs, the S caps and things like that. Because on their own, they tend to upset my stomach, but something about the formula of Tailwind, the electrolytes, as well as the calories, it all sits really well in my stomach. It goes down really well. So I'll continue to do that. There is a sweet spot, and the closest I got to getting out of that sweet spot, I was doing the Tailwind on Wasatch, and I felt like it was getting hot, and I thought, geez, what am I not getting enough? And so at one of the aid stations, I grabbed a salt tab or an S cap or something, just one, like out of a regular dose of 2 or 4, and I could immediately feel that I'd gone over, that I had too much. So, I think there's a balance, but to say that you shouldn't do salt, just because it doesn't help with the cramping, is to say that that's the only factor that salt's affecting. And for me, again, it's like it would be like trying to go cold turkey with no salt when I like to salt my avocados.
Well, because
my eggs.
Hardrock does not their stance now is we do not have salt tabs. That's
Yeah.
we're not doing it because of research, like you were talking about, proves this, that, or the other. But you make an interesting point. Is if you're used to something and you go cold turkey, if you don't do it, it's not necessarily a cramping issue. It could be where it kind of messes up your digestive flow or your body flow more than just cramping. Because I don't know where I stand. I'm not a science guy. I'm more of a did it work for me guy. And there's been races I felt onset of cramping, and I have popped some tablets and I didn't cramp. So I don't know if it's a placebo effect. I don't know what it is, but for me, I'll always carry some just in case.
Yeah. Well, and I am a scientist, and even presented science at this American College of Sports Medicine just yesterday or 2 days ago. But that's not my area of expertise, and so I know what they say, and so I've had the same experience you have, where it's like if I don't have salt, and I didn't do salt the first 30 miles of Western, and felt like that, and then got into that aid station and was dipping potatoes in salt, and within an hour came around. So again, is it placebo? Is it something else? And that was just a non-related correlation, a spurious correlation. I don't know. What I do know is that I've had the same experience you have, and that is why I've kind of tried to, if you want to call it a rationalization, or tried to figure out in my own head what's going on. That's how I came around. Hey, I eat salt normally, so maybe my body just needs to have a certain level to function properly. I don't know.
Well, and I've heard the same, more and more with water. Like, oh, when you run, you don't need to drink as much water as you think you do. You don't, drink when you're thirsty, or you don't need this or you don't need that. And for me, it's almost like telling me how to breathe, right? It's like, oh,
Right.
you only need one breath every, 2 minutes or whatever it is. And it's like, well, if I'm used to, like, I drink water all day. That's my number one source of fluid next to a good beer. But I don't drink soda. I don't drink juice. It's water all day, every day. And so when I run, if I don't have water, I don't know if it's a matter of dehydration, fatigue, or just comfort, having my mouth and throat, soothed or whatever it is. So I think a lot of that, the salt tabs, the nutrition is so, I have a hard time for people doing a study saying, don't do this or do this, it's better.
Well, research on the whole, particularly like this. Well, no, I mean, on the whole, researchers look at very, very focused elements. We have to control the variables involved. And so you are picking certain variables and you're controlling all the others, and you're only looking at one small aspect. And with a system as complex as the body and digestion and nutrition and electrolyte, I mean, there's so many different variables involved. It's really hard to say that we can tell you how the interplay works in a full system. It's why we have lab research, and then we try and take it out of the lab and put it towards people in real situations, and it doesn't always turn out the same. It's why, and a lot of people don't know this, it's why like 99% of all rat studies don't equate to humans. But we don't talk about that. Everything doesn't carry over. So yeah, I get it, and I agree 100% with the water. I have adapted myself working on this kind of higher fat, lower carb, and again, I don't think I've ever been ketogenic. The closest I came was Wasatch, but in doing that, I also worked on doing some fasted and some limited water runs, and got to where I could go for a mountain 13 miler, 15 miler with one bottle. And I would go out for 1 to 2 hour runs, and I just wouldn't carry anything. But it was an adaptation. And so, yeah, you can certainly adapt to less water, and you can adapt to more water. Yeah.
Well,
yeah. If you drink a lot, you're going to probably need a lot.
Well, for me, there's only one study that I really hang my hat on. And it just, to me, it's a perfect example. It's from Rocky Four, right? I mean, what get your information? You got
Yeah.
Yvonne Drago training with all the high tech stuff, doctors, scientists, machinery, and then you got good old Rocky Balboa holed up in a cold, I don't know, barn, going old school with axes and rocks and sorrels running, and Rocky beats him. So for me, it's to each his own. Rocky, it worked for Rocky. It's going to work for me.
Yeah, I think I read that study in a journal. Yeah.
Might have been my journal under my
It
bed.
could have. Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I get all my basis is Rocky movies, right? So,
Well, there's no shortage of Rocky movies to pick from, so
no,
that's a
they
good place.
keep him coming before he kicks the bucket. That's what I say.
There you go.
So Pacers. Last time we talked, you had one Pacer, Jeff Calvert, if I'm correct.
Yep. Yeah.
Is he still on board?
Yeah, as far as I know, we haven't chatted. His wife is out. Renee is out getting ready today. She'll be running tomorrow the World's End 100K tomorrow, her first 100K.
Oh.
So they've been in that build up and now the anticipation of that race. So I haven't talked to him in a while. But yeah, as far as I know, that's still on. He probably doesn't know how long it's going to be, as far as I'm going to be going slow.
Yeah. But if you're gonna go slow, what a better place. I mean, can you find a better place to go slow than the San Juan Mountains?
No, every picture I see, I'm so excited. I can't wait to get out there. It's going to be so fun.
Yeah. So have you decided where you'll use him yet?
No, I really haven't. And I'm gonna. So we're on the quarter system here. My quarter is ending. Finals are due by next Thursday. And so I'm going to be doing all of that kind of planning and prep starting next week. And he's still the only one I have. My 12-year-old, well, he'll be 12-year-old by the time this comes out. My 12-year-old boy is just finishing up cross country and has really built a passion for running.
That's awesome.
And it's kind of independent from me because he really just does it on his own. He came home when cross country ended yesterday and said, "Hey, do you think it'd be okay if I just run on the trails behind the house?" I'm like, "Well, let's make sure you know your way around first." But
yeah,
that's awesome. So yeah, it's really neat. So I fully expect him to be out running with me in the build up, and so I'll have him run a section. So I'll have him pace me for 10 miles if I can find a section that has about that much. And then if there's enough crew, then I'll have my partner Jen. I'll have her pace me. So really, kind of, I have three, but the real pacer is Jeff, and I'll default to him. I'll use him as much or as little as he needs or wants.
Nice. So and then we have talked about kind of your timeline of when you might be heading down to be start acclimating or getting on the course. Is your timeline, where are you at with that?
Yeah, so my quarter ends. I'll wrap up my work anyway. The structured work, I'll still be writing and doing research stuff all summer, but ends on the 9th, and my son is finished with school on the 16th, and then we're pretty much free. We have one family event in Winthrop, Washington that we might go to the weekend after that, but again, that'd be a fine build-up. That the North Cascades have just beautiful trails that go anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000 feet. So I can be running at a good elevation for adapting to going to the mountains.
Nice. Have you?
So, but we'll be out there. I'll be out there by like the 26th, and we camp until I don't know, around the 10th or something like that.
Nice. Well, that'll be great. That's good timing. And then you, like I said, you can get used to it a little bit, take it in, get more nervous, whatever it is.
Yeah, a little bit of both. We'll stop in Utah on our way as well. So, go see my grandson and my son, and we'll probably, depending on the snowpack. I saw a picture just yesterday. It looks like it's still pretty high, but we like to do an overnighter on Timp. So we'll probably hike up and camp somewhere up in one of the meadows up on Timp.
That's beautiful up there.
Yeah.
So, have you been getting any more information from people? Last time we talked, you had like Quentin Barney, when you came to Utah, did a track thing. Has anybody reached out to you to give you any more tidbits, or have you reached out to anybody to gather any more tidbits, or are you just kind of leaving it as it is now?
No, I'm picking up things here or there. And like I said, at this conference, I was lucky enough to have a presentation there. I sat through a presentation by the doctors from Hardrock, and they were talking about the tracking system, and they were talking about medical issues and ultras. So really kind of got a good sense for how the medical team works. And Dr. Glover and Halverson, I said, hey, it's nice to meet you. I'll see you in July, but I hope to not see you in July, kind of thing.
I'll see you, but I'm not going to need you, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I've been going through my old magazines. I've been looking at my map. I've been plotting things out. Another good thing, but a total time sink, is the whole Hardrock course is now on Google Earth or Google, like the guy, they carry the backpack and you can see the street view of the trails.
Yep.
It's very cool. But I could probably run it faster. I don't know. I'm not good at doing that because you just sit there and click ahead. So I did, I don't know, about a 20-mile section of it on the first day I found out about that, and looked up and like 2 or 3 hours had gone by. So the plus side is, it'll make sense. It'll look familiar. And that's totally unique. I've never had that for a race I haven't been to before.
That is pretty cool. So, so speaking of the course, what's the latest on the snowpack up there?
I saw a picture within the last couple of days showing some snow, frozen lakes up high, but it looks like it's good. It sounds like it's going to be warming up and a little bit less wet, so could be snow. But yeah, it looks fine. It was spectacularly beautiful.
Yeah, that's something about that place. I don't know. All right, so before we kind of wrap up here and let you go and get training and everything, what moving forward, like over the next, this is kind of a 2-part thing. We'll kind of let you go here. So it's June 2nd is when we're talking right now, Friday, June 2nd. You got 42 days out.
Thank you.
That's 6 weeks. So 42 days.
Got it. Okay, good. Yeah.
So two things here, and I'll let you kind of explain that. What are some of the things or goals you have planned for the next 42 days? And what concerns do you have moving forward until Hardrock?
So the concerns are that this tendinosis or avulsion fracture will flare up again, and I won't be able to train. So I'll probably spend another week just maintaining a steady amount of running. I'm going to go out this weekend and, start out and see what happens with like a, 12 to 15 mile run. And if that goes well and I recover well, then, the next week I'll go out and do a little more. So just a gradual ramp up. And then by the time I get out to the race course, the end of June, somewhere around there, I want to have 2 or 3 kind of big days. And at this point, they'll probably only be, 15 to 20 miles each, but in the mountains, and then just explore the course in steady doses over the remaining 10, 15 days before the race. So it's really going to be just kind of a very fast ramp up. try and shock the system into liking being at 10,000 feet, 14,000 feet, and see where we go from there. But mostly at this point, it's just staying healthy. That's the real key.
Yeah, I mean, if you can head into anything healthy, the mental side of it's a big boost for sure. So that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think we'll let you go. Like I mentioned before we came on here, is we're going to try and get you back on before the race at some point. I know you'll be down in Silverton, but it'd be nice to get you on the horn, kind of the pre-race conversation, if you will, and then again hit you up after you finish.
That'd be great. We'll try and make sure it's not one of the times when I'm out running, we've got some climbing plans. We're going to do, like, there's a Via Ferrata in Telluride. So we've got some fun adventures.
That's awesome.
But I'll try and pick a day when we can be at a cafe where I get good signal and whatnot.
There you go. Well, we definitely can't wait to see how well you do there. I know it's going to be a challenge, but I also know, you're going to take it all in, and you got the right mindset for us. So we wish you luck, especially this last month of build up, because it is kind of, like we talked about, it's like kind of critical to kind of get where you want to be or feel more comfortable. I don't think you ever head into a race going, yep, I'm ready.
No. Yeah. I've been on the other end where I felt like I'd done too much, or never felt like, like I was overtrained, but never this undertrained. So it will be interesting.
Well, nice. Well, thanks again, Jeff, for taking the time out of your schedule of travel and presentations and finals and training and, everything else you're doing. But we've sure enjoyed having you on the show, kind of talking through the process. Even for me, this has been awesome to hear kind of other people's perspectives and build-ups and things like that. So, man, we can't tell you thanks enough for letting us take so much of your time the last few months.
Oh, I've enjoyed it. It has added this to the stress level, but it does keep me accountable, and so yeah, I'm excited. The next one's going to be fun because I'll be out there. I'll be able to tell you about the course and whatnot. So
yeah, I'm excited for that. So yeah, we'll just we'll catch you on the next one. Have a safe trip out there. Good luck, and we'll talk to you soon.
Right on. Take care.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you for listening to the Trail Manners Podcast. We'd like to thank Jeff Hart for taking the time to join us once again. And we can't wait to get him back on in about a month, right before the big day. We also want to encourage everybody to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Trail Manners, or swing by the website at trailmanners.com. There on the store page, you can pick up some swagging rights, or just hit us up on the contact page and let us know what you want to see, who you want to hear, or even if you would like to be on the show. Until next time, this is Eric Manning with Joel Hatch reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.